This is West Tyne Light Network. Now, it is time for Poetry of the Day. And in this broadcast, we take a look at the English poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning, narrated by Matthew Erskine. Welcome to my programme on Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who, in the words of E.C. Stedman, was not only the greatest female poet that England has produced, but more than this, the most inspired woman to have composed and flourished in any land or clime. Now that's quite an epitaph. Now what else can I add to that wouldn't pale beside? I am a confirmed novice when it comes to writing poetry, but if I may just push my very limited talent for, and the enjoyment I get from reading and more precisely speaking it aloud, Elizabeth is nothing if not the truest to her ideals and subjects in her verse. Born in London to a country squire in 1809, Elizabeth pushed her ability from an early age. Indebted to her father for seeing to it she received a classical education. Her father's sharp eye cast itself upon his daughter's talent for writing poetry, and he was her self-appointed sounding board, if such things existed at the time. Before long, Elizabeth's father hired a tutor named Boyle. His name Elizabeth sweetly adored, and he put it in her mind about the poets of the antiquity. Elizabeth got to grips with the Grecian Aeschylus, whom she knew and learned to memory, and held a special place for his works, only matched by her admiration for Shakespeare. Perhaps it's time now to hear our first poem by Elizabeth. This one is called The Best Thing in the World. What's the best thing in the world? June rose by May dew impearled. Sweet south wind, that means no rain. Truth, not cruel to a friend. Pleasure, not in haste to end. Beauty, not self-checked and curled, till its pride is over pain. Light, that never makes you wink. Memory, that gives you no pain. Love, when so you're loved again. What's the best thing in the world? Something out of it, I think. The words shine out to me, and indeed there are so many things you could say are the best things in the world. But the simplicity of getting something out of it is perhaps the best. Elizabeth's maiden work was Essays on the Mind and Other Poems, produced when she was 16, followed by a detailed translation of Prometheus in 1833. In 1838, her second works of poetry came along, and is named The Seraphim and Other Poems, and a year later came The Romance of the Page. Personal tragedy struck next, a tragedy that shaped her next years. Elizabeth burst a blood vessel in her lung. Her brother and 2 friends were killed in a drowning accident, which left Elizabeth bereft, and for years she secluded herself to her bedchamber and saw next to nobody, yet, majestically, acquainted herself with books in every language. It's now time for Elizabeth's next offering. I have tried to stray deliberately from Elizabeth's most well-known poems, The Cry of the Children and The Child Asleep. So I have chosen 3, by no means lesser in quality, only in popularity, to read throughout. We've had the first, here is our second, The Soul's Expression. With stammering lips and insufficient sound, I strive and struggle to deliver right that music of my nature day and night, with dream and thought and feeling interwound, and inly answering all the senses round, with octaves of mystic depth and height, which step out grandly from the infinite, from dark edges of the sensual ground. This song of soul I struggle to outbear, through portals of the sense sublime and whole, and utter all myself into the air. But if I did it, as the thunder roll breaks its own cloud, my flesh would perish there, before that dread apocalypse of soul. I certainly have never read words that delve so piercingly into the human mind. You could argue Elizabeth had that preemptive talent to take situation, trauma, people's troubles, and use words of a pithy, interesting nature to awaken her readers. Could there have been a more piercing look into one's mind? Robert Browning, the celebrated English poet, did, in 1846, take Elizabeth's hand in marriage, and the couple almost instantly decamped to Florence in search of a healthier climate. They were rewarded, but their gain was England's loss, as Elizabeth stayed in her adopted land until her death on the 29th of June 1861. Her last work, Poems Before Congress, portrayed her subtle interest in the people of Italy. Little did Elizabeth know that she would be, in death, proclaimed to have created a golden link in Anglo-Italian relations. Elizabeth Barrett Browning may not possess the great intellectual power of Sir Tennyson, but my word, in a different way, she does deserve to be at the forefront of English literature, with her works that lack pomposity, appeal to the lesser mortal, and evoke in my mind trueness and sincerity. Our last poem is called Adequacy. Maybe not the groundbreaking work of all time. Indeed, Elizabeth's references to religion have little meaning to me personally, but as a reader, her deployment of such words seems vital to herself and the poem in a way that she looks to everything for inspiration. Certainly, the last two lines of lessons we sometimes could all learn from. This is Adequacy. Now, by the verdure, on thy thousand hills, beloved England, doth the earth appear, quite good enough for men to overbear the will of God in with rebellious wills. We cannot say the morning sun fulfills ingloriously its course, nor that the clear strong stars without significance in sphere or habitation. We, meantime, our ills heap up against this good and lift a cry, against this workaday world, this ill-spread feast, as if ourselves were better certainly than what we come to. Maker and High Priest, I ask thee not my joys to multiply, only to make me worthier of the least. This was a West Tyne Light Network production. Written, narrated and produced by me, Matthew James Erskine. You can find the West Tyne Light Network on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter. You just have to type in West Tyne Light Network.